This is the Waupaca Area School District Board of Education meeting.
Okay, thank you everyone for making time in your schedules to join us this evening. Mr. Hackett, will you lead us in the pledge?
I'll be glad to. Here, ready. Oh, here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will call the meeting to order. Roll call. Let the record reflect that Mr. Martin is excused this evening. All others are in attendance. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So move.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We'll move to public comment. Since there aren't too many raising their hands, we'll move along.
Can I make a comment? Just because we're in a new venue, we don't have microphones here any longer like we used to. Are we going to just use that mic? Is everything going to be picked up on a regular basis?
I guess Wayne will let us know.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Nope.
Okay, all right. We'll move on to approval of past meeting minutes. We'll start with the August 8, 2017 board meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion?
Just a quick aside, there was some typographical errors that a board member did bring to our attention, and those errors have been corrected.
Okay, with those corrections, all in favor of approval?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item is the minutes from the August 17, 2017 board workshop.
So move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Communications.
So we don't have any community partnerships or recognition to celebrate this evening. We will at the regular October board meeting, so I'm going to move directly to the district administrator's report.
Oh, no.
The enthusiasm, I can feel it. So the district celebrated the soft opening of the new athletic facility on August 25th with a tailgate event that served approximately 1,000 local fans. The student athletes and many local community members described the upgraded venue as awesome, end quote. And if our Waupaca 4K numbers are any indication of enrollment, the direction is positive, as the unofficial 4K numbers are up 15 students this year, with 143 students in the class of 2031. If the weather allows, the track will receive its new surface next week, completing the athletic redevelopment project. The high school remodeling project will be near 100% completion by the end of next week as well, and a ribbon cutting ceremony will celebrate the completion of both projects in the weeks to come. A special thank you goes out to all of our dedicated staff members who helped make the first week of school a successful one for our students and families. And the district is once again seeking substitute bus drivers for the 2017-18 school year. If you or someone you know are interested in providing this important service, please contact Lee Nowicki in the transportation office. And then finally, it is with great sadness that I report the district mourns the loss of yet another student with the sudden and unexpected loss of Bryce Kramer over the weekend. Our hearts go out to all those affected by this tragic loss. So concludes my report.
Thank you. From the facilities standpoint, what remains to be done with the work inside?
Well, the major item that we're waiting for with the new student services suite are doors. Doors and the hardware for the doors. Of course, there are some glass side lights in those new entryways that we're still waiting on as well. That's the majority of what we're waiting for right now. And we've heard that we may receive the doors this week, Friday, and the glass will follow shortly thereafter.
Good. Any question on the administrator's report? Okay. Moving on to board monitoring.
Yes, so I see Bill Crosberg just got up and walked out the door.
Coming
So-
back in.
He's meeting somebody out there.
Probably one of our students. So what I'm going to start while Bill and his students are kind of gathering themselves, we've got a slideshow playing back here in the background. It's only about 3 minutes long. These are some pictures that have been taken over the last 3 semesters as our students have been progressing on the classic car restoration course. So that last slide, that last image that's up there right now, that's not the car in its current state. That's the desired end product. So when the project is complete, that is the car that will be turned over to Neville General Motors, specifically Tim and Jeff Neville. So I'm just going to kind of set the stage here a little bit for Bill and probably more importantly as students who joined us here tonight. I included in the board packet, or I should say we included in the board packet a copy of the April edition of Auto Restore, and there's a great article in here that highlights, the title of it is Let's Attend a High School Muscle Car Class. And the article really highlights the wonderful and incredible opportunities that our students here in Waupaca have through our CTE program. And so I'm going to just kind of turn it over to Bill, and you can just share maybe a little bit, maybe introduce the students who have joined us here tonight, and then we can let them talk. Sure.
20 years, and this is the first one of these I've ever been to. I have with me today Brian Kuchowski, who is a student at Fox Valley Tech. He's in the diesel program. We had one other student that unfortunately has class until 6:30 in the auto program at Fox Valley, so he's probably not going to make it. And then we have Brittany Van Dyke over here. Britt is our senior gal in the program right now. She's been with us. This will be her second time around. So Brittany really is great because she kind of knows where we've been, the history of the car, with the students we have now that are all kind of new to it. And Brittany, we really rely upon her for kind of taking us to where we are now. Ryan was with us. Gosh, you were with us for I think two runs of the class. Ryan saw it from ground level, and when I say ground level, from a car that needed a whole lot of work, literally. Almost every piece of sheet metal on the car is brand new, to where it stands today. We are, I would say, probably with the project, I would say probably 75% complete. Engine, transmission, everything's all back in the car. We've got some fit up things to do. The car will be block sanded and gone to paint. So it's kind of a neat project. It's a lot like Mr. Larson's house, where the students get to really see it all the way through to completion from beginning to end, in whatever and with the car, it was whatever state it was in. And unfortunately, this car, the instructor didn't do so well in picking a car. But the nice thing about that is the car, they've had an opportunity to really see it through. There's not a whole lot in this car that we haven't had to attend to. So there's been plumbing, there's been electrical, there's been welding. The students are involved in purchasing parts, talking to people, planning, to make the whole project come together. It's just a whole bunch of things coming together, and it'll be things that they'll use again down the road, I hope. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Kind of tell them a little bit about the project, and if you have any questions, by all means, feel free to ask Ryan and Brittany.
So, question for the students. So, what have you learned by working on this car, this project?
I've learned a lot of bodywork techniques, welding on thinner gauge sheet metal, basically everything about a car, and we went through the whole thing.
So Bill, what happens to the car when you turn it over to them, and now when it's completed? What do they do with it now?
What their plan is, when we first approached the project, I went to Tim and we talked about a number, and we looked about what the car in its done state would bring. We kind of talked about what kind of car we wanted. Obviously, being a General Motors dealer, he wanted some type of GM product, and a Camaro is kind of a car. It's kind of an everyone's car. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. So we settled on that type of car, and basically we came upon that number, a not to exceed number. Looking at when the car was done, I believe Tim's tentative plans are to keep the car around. He'd like to have it in the showroom, kind of displayed in obviously the 4th of July parades and the homecoming parades and some of the things that we do in the community, to kind of talk about what we do in the school district and how we're working with students. I suspect there was some talk that Jeff might want it, but I understand Jeff has purchased a Harley instead. So I think this is kind of going to take second billing to Jeff's Harley. I suspect at some point the car will probably end up in an auction, probably be auctioned off. I would suspect about a Mecum grade auction, if you're familiar with the Mecum auctions. And you know, kind of, I think that's Tim's disposition on the car, if I understand it correctly. So, on this particular vehicle, we're probably going to be right about break even on where we thought we'd be, based on the amount of sheet metal we put in the car. But when it's done, it's going to be one darn nice Camaro. It's going to be gorgeous. So, yeah. Good question.
So were there times that you felt, once you started taking it apart and seeing some of the issues with the vehicle, that you just said, we're way in over our heads on this? Or did you always feel that you had this under control?
Well, the beauty in this is before we talked about really doing this, we've got a great support network of people. We've got a number of folks in town that have expertise in areas that I don't. There's a gentleman by the name of Dave Stencil who's done, when I get in trouble, he's my first call. And he's been very good about coming and looking at what we have, offering suggestions. Remember when we did the floor and we did the frame rails, there was a lot of measurement, a lot of math involved in that, because if you don't get that right, nothing else matters. So there was a lot of fitting and things that he knew that he offered to us. There have been a number of people in the community. Keith Reel at Neville's has been tremendous. Anything that I've needed, Keith has been available for us. So yeah, there's a number of folks out there in the community that have offered to help, and that'll continue as we go forward. So, yep.
Ryan,
Yes.
good to see you. So you were in the program for 2 years.
Yes.
And so now you're in Fox Valley
Mhm.
and auto mechanic,
Diesel mechanic.
diesel mechanic. So are you in class with kids that have had the same experience you had at different high schools?
No.
Do you know more than they do?
Yes.
Oh. Great answer. So you really feel that you came into the program at Fox Valley with a lot of knowledge?
Yes,
that
I
you
do.
didn't hear in
Yep.
high school?
Mhm.
That's what I wanted to know. Good job, keep up the good work.
It was funny, we have the other student that can't be here is Tom Knowlton, their son Tegan, and through Tom, I had found out that Tegan was a little apprehensive going to the tech the first couple of days, obviously, and they put them through a battery of tests and show them parts to see kind of what their basal knowledge is. And Tom had told me that Tegan came home and said, "Dad, I was done in 15 minutes. This is all stuff we did." So he was kind of somewhat bored, but it'll get better.
That's awesome. Good for you.
Brittany?
Yeah.
Got to hit Brittany with a couple questions.
What's the most difficult part of the project?
The most difficult, well, I know I wasn't there in the beginning, but I've heard a lot of stories and how when they first got it, like you said, that we were way over our heads in it. But I think it's coming along really good, and it's really nice to be working around with it and for future knowledge.
So have you been able to sit in the, has the car been started yet, Phil?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you been, you're looking like it has. Does he know that you've been in there driving it yet?
Oh,
Okay.
No, but we have started it, so.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does.
Who does get to drive it?
The superintendent.
We'll see. We may set up a little test course out in the parking lot. We'll see what comes of that. Going to have to be broken in a little bit. There you go.
Sell rides.
There you go. There you go.
I
That'd be
have
good.
a question about the auto restoration market. Have you learned as part of this anything about the auto restoration market? I'm just hearing what you said about what you had to redo. How much can you actually replace in a car when it still gets to count as the original car, as a restored car?
That's a good question, and the car does have a story. When I initially went to look at this particular vehicle, I found it down in Waupaca on Craigslist, and you have to be a little wary of Craigslist. I went down with another friend and we looked at this thing, and the guy actually started the car and drove it out of his garage. It didn't have any brakes. And we kind of looked this thing over and thought, boy, this is really neat. And there were some things on the car that were of interest to us. There's what's called a matching numbers car, meaning all of the componentry of that car would be basically untouched from original. And we started looking at some of the numbers on the car and trying to decipher what we had, and for a brief period of time, we thought we had a matching number car, and what that would have done to the value of this car would have been just astronomical. So we ended up purchasing the car, got it back, and we found out that it had the engine block replaced. Everything on the car matches but the engine block. So it is a non-matching car, but what that also gave us the opportunity to do was gave us some creative freedom to change some things tastefully, like the color, the original color, what was it? It was some horrid, it was Granada Gold, yeah. It was not a very appealing color back in '67. So we changed it to red. We put, instead of what do we do, standard? It had those standard seats in it. We reupholstered it with the deluxe interior. It's got nice white piping around the seats. So we put a different hood on it. So all of those things that we've done are, I guess you'd call them tasteful upgrades. If it was a matching numbers car, you probably wouldn't want to do that. But red line tires, I think we talked about. Those are all done. So yeah, it's gonna be pretty nice when it's done.
So do either of you plan to do this as a hobby or as a profession?
As a hobby, yes, but I don't know about profession. I'm not too sure about it, but I really like classic vehicles and everything, so.
So for those of you who are familiar with the TV show Counting Cars, there's a gentleman out in Las Vegas, and he has made, he's made millions, I'm sure, by buying old cars like this, fixing them up, flipping them for customers, and he's also created a TV show. So just by happenstance, a couple of weekends ago, I was in one of the neighboring towns, and was at the gas station, and this guy who looks like Elvis, his name is Bill Stull. He owns a body shop in Polonia, Wisconsin, if you know where that is. And so I was fueling at the same time Bill was, and I said, "Hey, Bill, do you know Bill Grossberg?" And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "I've heard of the Camaro project that you guys have going on over there." And he said, "I would love to come and talk to the kids, the students sometime, about this as a profession." He said, the guy who does the painting for Counting Cars is a good friend of his. And so there's an opportunity there for them to talk about how this can be a real viable occupation, and that there's a real limited interest in today's youth. And so the fact that we have a program like this, really, I think it speaks to the creativity of the district and to the offerings, the incredible offerings that our CTE program here in Waupaca really bears to offer for our students. So, when you look at the incredible opportunities in this district, I said it before and I'll say it once again, it really is incredible what opportunities the students in the school district have. And so the last thing that I'll say, Bill, and then I'll turn it back over to you, is, as this project nears its completion, Bill and Carl and I have been having some discussions about what next, because we've had about 40 students, is that right, Bill, so
Yes.
far that have participated in this project?
Probably a little more than that.
With more students still enrolling in courses as we roll this forward. So in the board meetings to come, we'll bring forward a proposal for the board's consideration. So you were going to say, Bill?
Kind of to take what Greg said, is you will see more of this in the future. You'll see schools our size. Freedom High School does a wonderful job. Bob Abbott's son is running that program over there. They actually have a paint booth in the building, and they do quite a bit with older classic car type stuff. He chooses to run it as an after-school program. I don't know so much about that. Chippewa Falls High School, I think they're probably close to our size. Maybe they also run something very similar. You will see more of this in the future going forward. Basically due to a lot of the exposure on TV, you mentioned Counting Cars. now with cable channels, there's always something on TV and there's a ton of car shows. This seems to grab people. Trying to get young people to gravitate to it is not hard. There's Monster Garage, and I think there's probably 10 or 12 cable shows that I could think of off the top of my head. So this is going to be something that I would guess you'd see more in the future.
Bill, just a couple questions.
Yeah.
A nice article, by the way, and they didn't have your picture in here, though. I'm surprised. Maybe I'm not that surprised. Anyway, John Gannell, who wrote this, how did he get onto your program?
How did John Gannell get there? That's a great question. If you remember Krause Publications in the heyday, when Krause was a powerhouse, when Chet was alive and they were really going at it. John Gannell was hired by Chet to be the editor for I think about a half a dozen of Chet's magazines. And in the Krause, when they were sold and kind of parceled up, a lot of those car magazines were sold off, and John was a casualty of that. John then became a freelance writer. John lives in Iola, and I still think he writes for about a half a dozen different publications. That happens to be one. And they want to do a story with us when it's done. They want to kind of do a story, how did it all end? So there'll be another one of those coming out when we're done here at the end of the year.
And the other question I had, you rebuilt the engine as such, but what can you do, or what did you do with the odometer? How does that work?
Excellent question. Because of its age and some of the legal ramifications, I believe on the title it's beyond mechanical limits, I believe is what it's stated on there. So.
How many miles did it have?
That's a real good question. I think the odometer on it shows somewhere around 77,000. I don't know that's. I'm sure that's false. So, what we were looking for was good oil pressure, good compression, and it ran at temperature, and it did all of those things fabulously.
And what year is it?
It's a 67. It was the first year. It was the first offering of the Camaro, I believe. First offering. Yeah. Did you have one?
No, but I've been in one.
Are you going to tell us?
Nope.
I'm wondering, I noticed in the article too, they talked about having 2-hour blocks of time to work on that. Did that require a lot of reconfiguration of the high school schedule overall, or of the CTE schedule, or?
That would be a good question for Ms. Erb or perhaps the guidance counselors. I don't really know how we played into the scheduling. I wish I could answer
No,
that.
Sandy, just because we only have several classes that take 2-hour blocks, it wasn't very hard.
So there are other 2-hour blocks.
The other CTE class of residential building.
That makes sense.
If there'd be a lot of classes, then I think it'd be a struggle.
So what's on your wish list for your shop, Bill, these days?
Well, let me see. I just happen to have a list right here.
You said you're in front of the board. You can ask us now. It doesn't hurt.
Well, I think probably the first thing we'd be looking at is an alignment. What was that?
That's enough.
That's enough. We're done. Yeah. Well, we've got a few things. Probably one of the things I hear most often is an alignment system, where we need to be teaching more of that, because in a shop, even the big shops, the Bergstroms of the world, a lot of these technicians were, in the past, they used to specialize. You didn't like doing alignments, so we gave that to someone else. Now they're all charged to, when you do something that requires the car to be aligned, you see the process through to the end. So if you install a ball joint or a tie rod or something like that, you have to, in most cases, you take it all the way to the end. So most dealerships are really short for alignment techs or people that have an alignment knowledge. Our alignment machine is probably 25 years old, and I was told that the next time it goes kaflooey, that'll be the end. So they're not replacing parts for it anymore. So that's probably gonna be the next thing on the list, I would think.
Ryan, would you agree with that? I mean, do you see a lot of that at the tech school, the need for alignment?
Yes.
Brittany, how about you?
Oh, well, I'm not too into everything just yet. I've only used the alignment machine once, so that was a few years back.
Thank you very much, really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks. We'll get you an article when it's all done.
Yay.
We'll maybe have a day that we have it out and you see it before it heads across town.
And I'm sure we'd like to take a ride. Betty will probably be the first one who'll want to sign up to drive it.
We'll make
I
sure
won't
that
drive it.
Ride it.
I'll sit on that task.
I'll leave it there.
Yeah.
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay, next section on the agenda is with regard to the board. We'll start with any meetings attended. We really haven't had that many. We do have some coming up though, which leads right into the next one. If you want to give us the upcoming meetings.
September 20th, October 10th, we've got a regular board meeting here in the community room. 18th and 20th. And then there are always various WASB governance workshops.
Where is that October 1? Stevens Point? 19th and 20th?
Is there any chance the October board meeting would be at Chinese School?
That is certainly a possibility.
Along that line, we do have the schedule for board visitation.
Yes, so it's a schedule. It's only a suggestion. As I have learned over the past year, the board goes where it wants, when it wants. So this is just a suggestion.
We appreciate the suggestion.
Yeah.
Okay. Personnel Committee.
Yeah, I'm gonna get over to you.
The Personnel Committee met to consider as a one-time supplemental pay for approximately something short of 110 teachers, and I say something short because the board has already taken action for a one-time supplemental pay for that group of teachers. That is in the 10 Masters 24 cell. And so the board took action on, let's see, was it July 18th? August 8th. So at that time, the Personnel Committee made a motion to approve the one-time supplemental pay for teachers who demonstrated a salary increase of $117 or less as of June 1. Committee motion, it does not require a second.
Okay, there is a motion from the Personnel Committee. Any questions or discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the 2018 graduation date and time. School Board Policy 345.62 indicates the board may approve the date and time of the graduation exercises. Graduation is generally to be held on the Sunday prior to the last day of school for students unless changed by board action. And we've got a list of a number of dates that might pose as conflicts for graduation. However, we believe that Sunday, June 3rd at 2 p.m. Happens to be the date that conflicts as comported with board policy. So the recommendation is for graduation to be set for Sunday, June 3rd at 2 p.m.
I make a motion, we approve the June 3rd at 2 p.m. date.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion.
This has got to be the easiest graduation ever.
There's no discussion? Okay. I only say that because you're right. There have been times that it's taken us 45 minutes. With no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries Sunday, June 3rd at 2 p.m.
Now are we going to decide how long it's going to take? It was, what was it?
We've got a new principal.
Oh, no.
Oh, that's awesome. He's a fast speaker.
Yeah, he'll be great. It'll be great.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the vision/mission statement.
So the board will recall that in April of 2017, we held the event referred to as hashtag Waupaca Way 2K30, a community conversation, and that was part of a process known as Future Search. And the process gave the board and the administration a lot of data and a lot of important feedback about the priorities and values of the community as it relates to education. So as such, the board and the administration has taken that data and continued that conversation. Most recently on August 17th as part of our board workshop. Out of that board workshop, a lot of very valuable information came. The board reviewed the mission statement that was currently set by board policy and also identified a vision statement. In addition to that, the board spent a fair amount of time identifying core values that were reflective of not only the community's values, but also of the board and the school district of Waupaca. And then finally, the board took a number of priorities that were identified at the community conversation and carefully crafted them into priority statements, ending up with 6 priority statements around which the administration will base its work and put the beginnings of a strategic plan together. So in front of you tonight is the draft language mission statement that will require board action to replace the current ends mission statement language, and then also the new vision statement.
We at the workshop did mention at one point that we may go back to part of the committee that was involved in developing the community conversation to see whether or not they had any thoughts or input with regard to this. Did we have the opportunity to do that?
Currently, we have representatives from all of our buildings and the different departments that comprise the leadership team. We have them coming together to take a look at the language that has been drafted and embraced by the board, and they will be making suggestions for word choice as well as identifying some of the efforts that have already taken place since the community conversation has ended back in April. So the work is ongoing. I think it's an accurate statement to say that this type of work is never really done. It's always a work in progress, and part of that progress right now is an opportunity for us to report back to the community the progress and the efforts that have been made to date.
Okay, any input specifically on either the vision statement or the mission statement?
I'm just trying to get a handle on, summarizing what you said there, Greg. Are we suggesting or saying that if we are to vote for or on the vision and mission statements as they're presented today, that we can then sort of move on, or are we constantly looking at input for that, or how do you see that happening?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the board did a lot of heavy lifting at the last board meeting, as you will certainly recall, I'm sure. The vision statement and the mission statement, I believe, are sound statements and are reflective of the information that came from that community conversation. I think that those statements, that language is fairly set. I think that the input that's going to come from the representatives across the district is going to be more in line with the core values and the definition of those core values, in addition to the priorities. So that portion of the work that's been done is really going to be where the administration centers its initiatives and the work that happens across the district day to day. So that's where I see the opportunity for district involvement and crafting of language, embracing of language, some changing, some defining.
Okay, so in our old venue, we had behind us always, we had a banner which had the Waupaca Way on it, right? Okay, so if we end up approving the mission and vision statement, would it be possible then to put that into some form where we can see that on a regular basis, at least in this room, or put it up, so that when we are talking about those priorities and things, we can look at that or have it available and say, this fits in very nicely, or is a line, so we, because we do tend to forget sometimes some of those concepts.
Yeah,
Is that possible?
Absolutely, and I'm just checking to see here if so the document that you see up on the screen right now is really the first draft at what you're referring to, Pat.
Right, and it's really the top two, the vision statement, which is very simple, and the mission statement, a little longer, but those aren't very lengthy. The priorities maybe we don't have to have, but it'd be nice to have that in full view on a regular basis.
Absolutely, and it's it falls right in line with our branding efforts, and as we push information out through the various media channels, this is exactly the kind of information that we want to put out there that is representative of the district and the board's work, the direction that the district is going, because this really communicates very clearly what the school district of Waupaca is about. So yeah, it's our intention to put this out there.
All right, any other questions at this time? All right, we'll take the vision statement first. Is there a motion to adopt the vision statement, committed to excellence in education?
I will move that we adopt that.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And the mission statement, the mission of the school district of Waupaca is to develop our students' capabilities and competence to achieve their dreams and make the world a better place. The district will provide a safe, compassionate environment while using community resources wisely. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Moving on to board monitoring.
So at your place tonight, you have an updated board monitoring schedule. It's been updated since the information materials went out, so this most recent version will replace the version that's currently online. And so what we have done here, as in years past, or at least last year, we've broken it down by month, item, and alignment to the appropriate ends policy. We did make some adjustments after this morning's administrative meeting to incorporate some of the items that are cyclical in nature. For example, the budget is usually Carl's show in October. Usually. And so, you know, those changes are reflected in this version in front of you. The only other note that I'll make real quickly is you'll notice that in April, which is our 1 year anniversary of the community conversation, it will be our intent to demonstrate and illustrate the effort that the district has made to date.
Is this informational, or do we need a motion on this?
We don't need a motion at this
Okay.
point. I think there should be some allowance for this to be a bit fluid depending on what may come up at different times. However, I would say that unless we don't have a board consensus, that we should adopt the draft as proposed and then look for some latitude where needed. Okay. Especially as we develop the ends policies to a little greater degree. Very good. Okay, that brings us to administrator.
So you will recall that at the district breakfast, we had a collaborative presentation with M3 and WEA. And as Covey would say, begin with the end in mind. We know that at the end of this school year, we will once again be looking to renew the insurance proposal with the school district. And so after 8 years of having a 0% increase, or at least less than 2% increase, we know that we're already outside the norm. So we really have to think outside the box in terms of how we're going to demonstrate to WEA and also our broker M3 that the school district of Waupaca is committed to cost control, and yet also want to be able to provide a service to our employees. And we believe that the telehealth support option is a win-win-win, and it's a win for the district, I think, in that we're providing a quality service to our staff members. It's a win for our students because it's an opportunity for our teachers to stay with our students longer, knowing that when our regularly trained staff members leave because of medical appointments, student achievement typically takes a dive. It decreases, and it's a win for our staff members because we're offering them an opportunity to receive that primary health care advice or input without being docked with the loss of at least a partial sick day or whatever kind of paid time off they might take in order to have this type of appointment. So this is probably not an initiative that requires board action. It's probably within the administration's ability to move a concept like this forward, but we believe that board approval on an initiative like this is something that will demonstrate to M3 and to WEA that the board and the school district of Waupaca is committed to cost control, and we are looking to be leaders among school districts and think outside the box and provide opportunities that are going to meet everyone's needs. So in that regard, we are looking for board support.
Very good. Is there a motion to approve the use of telehealth, the Amwell services, as were presented?
So
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion or questions?
Yeah, I have a question for Greg. Greg, at the gathering at the beginning of the school year, you talked to all the staff about that and did a nice job of explaining, I think, and I think a lot of people out here using it. My question is, does this include all of our retired people as well?
Well, I would say that we're not going to have to provide a substitute for them. But if if they would like to come into a district building and use that confidential setting to access electronically their primary healthcare provider, I see no, obstacles as to why we wouldn't allow something like that to happen, Pat.
So the telehealth initiative includes, it from your, if I'm hearing you correctly, it includes all of our present staff and/or retired staff who are in our in our plan, if you will, for healthcare.
Correct. Yes, I see that as being,
I got something in the mail with this, and interest from Admiral.
Okay, I mean, I have not, and I'm not on it right now, okay? But I also, I just wanted to bring that up because if that is the case, and we are including that group, we got to really make sure, I'm glad to hear that, Julie, that you got something, that those people are notified. You got everybody when they were here that are presently, but that group
I just
wasn't.
got it probably 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
I got something in reminding us with a telephone number and stuff.
Okay,
last
and you're
meeting,
part of
so
the
you put it on
WE.
your- Yeah, I'm on
WE.
And so you can put it on your fridge because it's last meeting.
We didn't get that number.
I think you have to be part of the plan.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's good to know. So that if anybody asks, we know that they're part of the plan, even if they weren't notified for whatever reason. Okay, good.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
So the next item, I'm going to ask Mr. Hayek to present.
Okay, before I start, I just wanted, the next two items are going to involve money. And I want to talk a little bit about the fiscal position of this district. 6 years ago, I brought the Native American quote, "We only take what we need," and I think that is absolutely true. If you look at our district, we're only one of 7 school districts out of 424 school districts in the state of Wisconsin that tax at least $1 million underneath the allowable revenue cap. All 6 years, we've been under budget, meaning that we had revenues that exceeded our expenses, so we're in a great fiscal position. Now, this summer, we've had at least 5 major construction projects throughout this district, including a major $500,000 roof replacement at WLC, including this athletic complex, and within this internally in the school district, close to $3 million. Let's take a look at that. So we're close to $3 million. We didn't go to a referendum. We didn't increase our taxes. Remember the preliminary budget that I brought to you in June? I said, conservatively, going forward, potentially there could be a small 12-cent tax increase. Well, now that we're to this, closer to the October, closer to projections, we know that when I said that our general aid, I believe, would go up, but I flatlined it, well, we now know that the July estimates are $100,000 more. What does that mean? That means taxes would go down. What I also said is that I believe that the property valuation, I actually put that at a flat line for conservative estimate as well, saying that would stay the same. But if that went up, because that's $1.5 billion, what would occur then? That your taxes would go down. So now that projected percentage increase is 4.24% off $1.5 billion. So what this school district is looking at is still taxing below the revenue cap with all these major construction projects, not going to a referendum, and having their taxes decline in October. So that's the fiscal position. So now that brings me, and I wanted to celebrate that a little bit to show the fiscal position we're in, that we didn't have to do all these multitude of projects that we have. And we still, what do we still have? We still have assets on the table in the amount of approximately $600,000 that could be an influx into our capital projects funds. And let's talk a little bit about the $1 million loan. Well, the $1 million loan came in at 3%, but we were able to put that in a local government investment property pool and get about 7.5% on that, and we don't have to pay that money back, only $200,000 of that, until March. So that's the position this district is in, and comparable to the fiscal positions across the state of Wisconsin. It's remarkable. to have done all these major projects in this short amount of time. So now we come to this athletic complex, and one thing I talk about, there's literally a caboose to my train of thought here. There is an in-game, and then I think about storage and storage lockers, and then I think about baggage, because I think about personal baggage, and I think if you don't have any baggage, you're not going anywhere. But so then I think, so we have all this storage as things all over the place, a little bit of chaos as we're moving across the district, and we have multitude of things that we could do here. And one of the things we have now is we have this beautiful athletic complex, and we have a structure with a floor already that we don't have to increase additional green space. We already took, JW Industries won the bid for the athletic complex. They were the lowest bid. And to be aesthetically, to match all the dynamics of the athletic complex, they built the concession stand. Why not save green space and incorporate that and use that space for storage? Well, why? Well, the Chain of Lakes has a nice storage facility which has been cleaned out. So that's one of our entities. Our schools have a great storage locker. The middle school has a storage locker, but the high school has nothing. Our biggest entity, our showcase, has no storage area. What do we have here? We have a multitude of things that we need to store. All the athletics, football, soccer, baseball, track, where it could be stored there. Theater. There's a multitude of things that we could store. So the concept here is to save green space, not and beat, so to speak, beat the building code change that's going to escalate the price, not have to lay that huge cement floor and enclose the bottom of those bleachers and use that and take JW Industries, which is we've worked with right now, to move this forward and get that done before the snow flies. So that is what we're proposing tonight. And we also know that we have 3 entities that are literally renting storage space at 3 different storage lockers across Waupaca, and we would like to eliminate that and kind of consolidate that and take all our old storage sheds that, let's face it, they're, for lack of a better word, not the greatest shape, not safe, particularly not secure, and actually eliminate those, lack of a better word, destroy those, and then literally have 3 major storage lockers throughout the district. So that is a recommendation for why we need the bleachers storage area.
Carl, approximately how much space is there, square footage wise? Do you know what that is?
Oh,
well,
3,000 to 4,000.
Yeah, it's you've been at the bleachers, so we're using a small component. It's a major storage facility.
Okay. And then what kind of doors would you put on that, almost like a garage door, so big items could get in there?
Certainly, yes. Yeah. And then we potentially segregated, so track, I've seen this done at other districts, track, football, they all would have their own entity and maybe even their own locking system so no one could commingle.
Other questions?
And the cost projection is?
$91,400.
And if we were to have the people, and I forgot their name already, that you suggested, they would start and end before the snow flies. They'd get at that right away.
Yes, and then they would also side the ticket booth. Side note, leave that side.
Yeah, good.
You said 91.4?
Pardon?
Said the 91.4?
Yes.
Do you know how much we spend each year on rental of other units?
I think Jen Herb's here, so.
I know that Waupaca Bay, we've been renting for 15 years, and we've gotten a good deal with Willie Jackalone at $600 a year. So I bet you most places are going $800 a year.
And that's only one of?
Yeah, that's one of 3.
The other 2, there's 2, but remember, those aren't under our insurance then. It is, our insurance does not cover storage lockers. And so anything at the storage locker is literally at the whim of.
And this new facility would be covered by your insurance?
Absolutely, yes.
Would that require that those the storage, the new one, that access then would have to be available through the winter time? I mean, like the stage productions, if they do a play in February, they're gonna have to maybe get at some of that, so.
Absolutely, it'll be snow plowed and,
We'll have to snowplow it at least to that, not maybe all the time, but certainly when it's necessary.
Or what we could do too, I might offer, is that we be strategic about where things are stored.
Right.
You know, for example, we snow plow regularly in front of the storage facility at the chain. I'm not so sure that running a snow plow out here is going to be something that we want to take on. So we would have to look at kind of the cycle of when things are needed. You know, and Bill and I have talked briefly about this. There's a compound out there in the student parking lot. And as you drive by this facility, it's a beautiful campus. But we've got a fenced-in area out there that's part of our residential build program that right now is temporary storage for the lights that we had out here, a lot of track equipment. So as we look to kind of shift and maneuver things, one of the things that, an opportunity that will present itself is to move things where they ought to be stored, and then also make the campus more aesthetically pleasing by putting things in a compound area that's secure with an inexpensive visual barrier. So just like you might see at a tennis court, weaving that goes between the chain links is an opportunity for us to just kind of further make the campus more aesthetic, more pleasing.
I assume that this is a common way to store things.
Under the bleachers?
Yeah, like for many schools and whatever this is.
I think that many of the projects that are being completed right now, you'll see this being done as part of the original project.
Do we have any other projects? I know we may hear something when we talk about the charter school about some things that need to be done, but other construction projects on the horizon for the year that might?
I would think the analysis of continual roof replacement projects are still in play. And I would have pics of the roof, but only I get excited about it. So you can see the full membrane, fully adhered roof, which I've been on with John, and Maureen wasn't too excited about the photography, but it is the most beautiful roof you've ever seen, comparable to the other roof. So that'll be roof construction projects will be continual. We'll have landscaping projects that will be going on, the playgrounds, the PTG playground. I believe that will be in play in September here. There will be both next week, the middle school playground and WLC's playground will be in play, but there will also be major painting renovation projects throughout the chain, the lakes going forward, and the middle school gymnasium. Those are some of the things on the horizon.
No major projects on the horizon, though, like, the construction that you've seen this year is not forecasted.
And all those that you mentioned are on our current rotation, if you will.
Correct.
So are we looking for a motion?
Yes.
I make a motion that we, and we need to use the name of, I would make a motion that we accept the bid by JW Industries in the amount of $91,400 to enclose the bleachers for storage purposes.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion or questions?
Is it a not to exceed quote then?
I didn't say that, but I don't know that it makes any difference to me. Do you think that's important to?
It won't exceed it, but certainly can look at it.
Then I'll put it in not to exceed. That'll be part of it.
Okay, not to exceed 91.4.
Second.
Second is still good. Okay, any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Moving on to charter school timeline.
Rhonda?
I don't know if you want to introduce it. I'm coming to you as a direct result of the, both the summit, the wishes of the community in the summit, and also as a result of your work with the mission and vision. The phrases of students, giving students the capabilities and the confidence to follow their dreams. One thing that a charter school can do for some children, for sure. So I have been working. We have a core team, and they are here tonight. Mary Kay, Julie, Becky, and Sandy. We have been meeting bi-weekly to formulate our own mission and vision, and I know how hard that is. So you are to be commended. I love what you came up with. So what I did is put together some of the preliminary things we've been doing, but as the recommendation says, we can't go any further without your approval to go forward with the timeline as I presented to you here, and also the costs that will be involved if we want to follow that timeline. So, if I can draw your attention to the screen, the name we came up with right now everything's just in a draft, because if we do seek the advice of a marketer or a person in design, they might say, no, do that. But this is what we feel as a core team that we really represent. Chain of Lakes Exploration Center. We really want to highlight that word exploration, because this school will be different in the way that students will be able to follow their interests, explore their own passions in their work. So, and that's an actual picture of Chain of Lakes. Okay. Oh, okay. So if we do go forward, if you approve that we go forward, I would want to have a lot of community meetings to just get some of the facts about a charter school out there, which a lot of the community might not know. It is a public school, so it would be open to all Waupaca residents and also open enrollees. It will be at the Chain of Lakes Elementary School. Enrollment would begin in January for the following fall start. Initially, right now, we are working with a consultant, and it is in our best interest to start with grades 3 to 5. A lot of research shows this is the grade level where a student begins to believe, oh, I'm good at science, or I'm good at math, and that's where you really want to catch their interest and let them go with that. Scaling annually, that eventually maybe we could be K through 8. So by scaling, we mean the following year it's 2nd through 6th, and then 1st through 7th, and then pre-med through 8th. So there's the core team that I mentioned. Now, what the advisory team is, we had a meeting a couple weeks ago in August, and I put out, I gave you some mailing list from the community summit. I also contacted everyone who came to our original kind of exploratory meeting back in March. And we had such a full house of people wanting to be on that advisory team that the room was overflowing. I had it in the computer lab at Shane. And these are some of the people, this is just the first group of people that walked in, but there are many others, and they're listed on your recommendation form. So just to gauge the desire in the community to go forward with this, it's definitely there. And from that advisory team, we would then pull, they would be the ones that would pull a governing board and set up the rules for the school. This is the mission statement we came up with. It's rather long, but you know how that is. So in this mission statement, we want to have a place where children explore their passions, engage in project-based learning, both as individual and in a collaborative community. Students will use their imagination and creative skills to be innovative and inspire others while growing in wisdom. So that's long. But the biggest question that we get is, well, are you going to be STEM or are you going to be environmental? And we really wrestled with that, because to pin it on one thing automatically cuts off the passions of other kids. And we really want to be able to be STEM and environmental and agricultural, because that is what that campus really is. It could really, really excel in those areas. But the arts is such an important part of that, and that's where the creativity comes in. So we are going to have those as our 4 pillars. So we are offering all of those, and those are the specialties that come on a project base. So your project may include any one of those. And each of those has a little priority statement in itself. So as I said, our main principle is that we are project-based. I have not really found a really good definition for that, and there should be an elevator definition that you could tell someone if you're standing in the elevator, but there are so many different definitions of that. that you almost have to see it in action. When we went to visit some of the schools, to be able to see kids that come up with their own idea, run it past their advisor, find another individual with that same interest, and then find their own research and just go on with it. That's what project-based is. It goes across the subject areas, it goes across grade levels, and while we're working on a project, you bring in all the different standards, and you're also timing yourself to see how you're accomplishing those standards. We are lucky to have Don Smith join our team this year, who comes from a STEM charter school, so he can help us with project-based. But it does require lots of professional development. I have learned a lot, and any teacher who would be teaching in that school would need extensive professional development, because it's almost different in the way that we're taught to teach. So we are giving the knowledge, and in a project-based situation, the child is seeking the knowledge, and you're there to guide them. The other principles that follow right with that is, as I said before, place-based. That campus is the place where this kind of learning can really blossom. Personalized, that goes right with project-based. You're going to go with the interests of the child. And mixed age works also with project-based, so that those older students are mentoring the younger, and they're going with their in a community setting, strong community. These are some of the things that need to happen next. We need to develop a governance council. I need to hold informational meetings, both within the district and in the community. We're going to have some accountability and financial measures, which we'll show you on the next slide. A lot of professional development, as I said before. And then we have to write a contract or a charter that goes both to the DPI and then to you for approval. That's a lot of work. That's why we have a consultant. And then finally, the student recruitment and lottery. The lottery happens if you have more students than you have slots for. It will be open first to our students that live in our district.
Ronnie, can I ask you, just because you mentioned that in the last bullet point there, your target is grades 3 through 5. What is your target number? Not who, but what number would you expect that would be sort of the ideal to start with?
We would like to see, you want to see a 15-to-1 student to teacher ratio in project-based. So 50 students, about that, with a 3 through 5.
I think 54 is what.
54, okay, that's what we have on there. So Carl and I did work, we are working with the Innovative Schools Network, as was noted in your recommendation, so that we get an idea of what are the costs that are out there. We are unique in that we don't have a building we have to secure. We have the building. We also don't have any administration costs at this moment because I'm already here. So I'll let Carl explain what he's seeing that we would need.
So when I led you before trying to say our financial position of the district, if you take a look at these numbers, and I've been part of other charter schools and other districts, we are starting a brand new school, and here's our first year price tag, $140,000. That's minimal. There's an exploration school that is going to basically transcend teachers that you already have. You'll have to hire some more teachers along this journey, but eventually you can see that you have an 18-to-1 student ratio going forward, and you can see that your projected students for the first year are 54. And as you move forward and you add 2 grades each year, you're going 90 students, 126 students, 162 students, and 162 students. Currently there's 108 students at the Chain of Lakes Elementary School. So you can see that the projected costs of professional development is a key component to this, and there's a marketing component. Remember, always budgeting is a financial plan. It's literally a plan moving forward. And all of the plans, budgetary plans I've been involved in, they are conservative. So what I think the charter calls for, correct me if I'm wrong, that first individuals who get access or the rights to be in the charter are district residents. So district residents could literally mean that instead of getting, we could have a shifting of students rather than attracting homeschoolers. It could be the students we have in-house, so that's conservative. So we went with this conservative ratio that it would be a mix of literally the students we already occur. So this is a conservative estimate because it doesn't show, I'm not showing you because I cannot say to you honestly that it would attract open enrolled students, but it could. So this is worst case scenario. So if you were to get open enrolled students, let's say you had 54 students, but there again, you had 2 or 3 students from the outside of the district, you would attain another $12,000 in revenue per student. So that would actually make that $140,000 less. So there's potential for that, but is that absolute? I don't know. So conservative estimates would show $140,000 the first year, $135,000 the next year. Remember, you're adding 2 classes, and the cost is going down because you're shifting teachers. You're adding some teachers in this one column, and then you're $135,000 next year. You're adding 2 classes. That's why your technology, we're trying to keep the technology budget constant at $10,000. You're adding more classes. In theory, you would need more technology. And then as you get to the final years, it's $132,000. You're adding 2 classes, and then it drops to $62,000. Remember, we originally have 108 students in this building. So that means there's about 50 students that potentially could be more. Where those students come from, that could be those open enrollment students. That could start gaining as you're marketing this school, and like at Amherst or a different school, you can see that this could literally take traction, and people could, once again, as future search, you could be attracted to the district for certain environmental quality or project-based learning. So I think this mechanism, it's unbelievable that, once again, that this budget could be so minimalistic as you're starting a brand new endeavor going forward. So that's how I see it, and that's the conservative estimate for the budget.
I think that's the last slide. Do you have any questions?
So I know you haven't had a lot of meetings yet, and you will be talking a lot more about it, but how do you see the marketing of the school itself? I mean, as Carl suggested, it's possible students from other communities would like to enroll, but how are they going to know that? How do you get that information out?
So that's one of the biggest things we've been struggling with, and we have gone back and forth on, we're going to need a lot of marketing, we're going to need billboards, and a really good website, to, we'll be full right away. We also did contact some marketing firms, so we did have one. If you went really with the ultimate marketing firms, it would be $50,000 at a minimum. But we don't need to go that far. We need a good website. We need a really good presence electronically, because that's how most people find out outside. So that's kind of $10,000 is our estimate of what we need right now. We were working with, if I can say names, Jay Kirchmar has been really helpful with us with his background with marketing and giving us both advice on wording and also some, techniques that we'll need to do next. And we have, Sandy has been calling a lot of agencies. I guess we're just waiting for your approval to go forward with that.
And so to clarify, you are seeking board approval tonight to continue with the planning, to adopt the timeline, and for commitment of resources to begin marketing,
in order to open
not
by
to
that.
exceed.
Yeah, right.
How much? What is the budget commitment for the marketing?
The marketing's $10,000.
$10,000.
$10,000. Okay. So just one more clarification. The board is not approving a charter per se this evening. The charter has not been written yet, but you are being asked to provide approval to continue with the planning process and to begin that crucial marketing part of the process.
And in your handout, the last 2 pages are the suggested timeline that we're working with. And so you can see that a lot has to be done in September and October that has to do with marketing and getting information out there.
So, excuse me. So as I listened to your presentation, and Greg, that what you're really asking the board tonight is to basically move forward with the overall plan, but also by using at least some of the marketing to get an idea of how many students and or parents are interested enough to,
Yes.
come back and say, we've done some, and we've gotten a lot of feedback, and we've got a lot of numbers who are all waiting.
Yes.
That's what you want to.
We have a tentative date for the first informational meeting at which we would gauge the interest and have some type of survey. Are you considering sending your student?
Okay, makes sense, yeah.
I just want to second what Greg said before, that school boards sign a 5-year charter contract between the governance board that'll be created by the charter school and the school board. And that is what would happen potentially. That's what they're going to write to bring forward to you guys a couple of months from now. And that's when the school would officially be approved. So like they said, right now it's just the funding to keep going in the timeline. But the approval of the school would occur when that contract gets signed between the two entities.
So you're not, at this point, your timeline would have that coming before the board in December?
That's correct, according to that timeline.
And then it can be approved by the entity, by the DPI.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Does that take long?
Does that take long?
There's one other piece that the board, maybe board involvement at some point. We don't currently have a policy in our policies related to charter schools. I went on to the WASB website and their policy development
Resource guide.
And so I pulled one that might be a starting point for discussion.
Are we looking for a motion at this point?
We can certainly take a motion. I think there may be more questions. But
Well, I'll put the motion and we can still discuss. I'll make a motion that the board approve the timeline as presented for the movement forward for the charter school, which includes budgeting for market and preliminary professional development.
It's second that.
motion and second. Any questions or conversation?
So the preliminary professional development, are there teachers in our district that are interested in this?
Yes.
Would those be the ones seeking the professional development, or would it be administrative, or?
Oh, it would be administrative, it would be governing board. They would need professional development, and also all the teachers, even if they are veteran teachers, because project-based is so different of a thing. And we visited one school where they just said, oh, next year we're going to be charter, so all the teachers who are here, you're going to be project-based next year. And then that doesn't work. It's more of a belief system, and you have to have some background in how does this work. Maybe you can
So you
speak to
would
that.
envision that some teachers wouldn't remain in chain if they would choose not to be
Correct.
project-based.
Well, there still will be teachers that change.
Right, but when it.
Eventually, as it scales out.
Yeah.
Maybe this question is more suited for Don, but when you are looking for teachers, does a charter school have the ability within the state format, if you will, to accept teachers that are certified teachers, but maybe not for that grade level?
No, you still have to follow the same DPI.
Same DPI, so it would be elementary teachers only that could apply, who would fit that 3 to 5?
Yeah, it's when you hit high schools where you get in trouble. But there is a thing called the charter school teaching license, which gives you some flexibility, but not a lot of flexibility. But since we're not talking high school right now, it's not really a discussion that we need to leave on too much of that.
Just because we're talking about it, why does it get more complicated at the high school level?
Because high school, you get specialized, you have a bachelor's degree in English, so then you teach English. And so it really has to do with your teacher of record and what are they connected to. And so whereas in elementary and middle school, you have broader licenses.
I see.
And so you can.
For subject matter.
Correct, and so you can teach just about almost all the subjects, K-8, whereas when you hit high school, you have very specific content licenses.
But in project-based, lots of the teaching is done by community experts, and that's what you really want. So if you have a high school teacher who knows something, definitely they're coming, doing most of the teaching, and the teacher of record is the advisor to the student doing the project.
Pat, I know that has changed because now students that are graduating from River Falls and Platteville with ag ed degrees are K through 12 now. And back in the day, we were just 9 through 12. So it's gone down.
So giving them that latitude to do just what we're talking about here.
Because a lot of,
I'm sorry, but I mean, just in that's a perfect example, because one of the 4 pillars you're talking about was agriculture. And there probably aren't too many ag teachers who are elementary focused. There might be some.
All the new ones are.
The new ones, but I mean, the old ones, no offense.
No offense taken.
But
Yeah.
like,
Experience.
when the charter licenses work, essentially, you still need eventually, if we ever got to high school, you'd need people certified in the 4 core content areas. You have to have somebody who's in that, but then you can get a charter license. In my previous school, like someone got a charter license that includes they're certified for ag, they're certified for almost every CTE area, that even their K-8 person, the charter license allows them now to be teacher of record for all of those areas. But you need the 4 core demand. Someone still has the license.
Mr. Hayek, on the budget, it would appear, if I'm looking at this correctly, and perhaps I'm not, so you can inform me, that some of these items would actually be cumulative type expenses, whereas some would be an annual expense. For example, the new teachers, you are adding a new teacher every year or a 5-year period.
Correct, you are absolutely correct.
So that number would be growing, so that really the representation, whereas the marketing, that's a year-by-year number.
Correct, I see exactly. It's a compounding, that's the question.
So we're really looking at when we
We're
get through.
looking at 4 new teachers.
Right,
yeah,
so when we get through the 5th year, in essence, we're looking at roughly $600,000
Yeah,
to be operating.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You are
And
correct.
as long as Steve brought that up about the budgeting aspect, does this money that we use for this particular project on your books, on the books, are they different? Are they segregated? In other words, we have Waupaca School District and then the charter school?
Well, since there'll be our teachers, we will be accounting. Our count codes will be specific to the charters to segregate it, but it'll be all done through this skyward mechanism.
But when the budget is set and everybody, just thinking like classroom
Yeah.
teachers all get X amount of money to spend on materials, does the charter school
Absolutely.
get a certain amount and then they have to divvy it up just like everybody else?
Absolutely, it will be basically the charter school budgets, similar to a high school or a WLC or the district budget. Yeah, they'll be their own entity.
That's all, also the charter school contract that'll be written and approved by you guys. All the wording about that is in there, what the district pays for and what, because you say the charter school wants some freedom to do some things, and the contract defines what the district controls versus what the charter school will control.
So then the charter school might have to fundraise for things over and above that they want for projects.
Within the timeline, if I could go to that for just a moment, you're indicating hire or gain verbal commitment for the teachers in October. Yeah, you're doing some site visits at other charter schools. It would appear after that time. Is it
Yes.
showing October through December?
Because we want those prospective teachers to come along on this.
Okay, so that's, at that point, it's more to be observing rather than to be, for lack of other term, in that development stage of what the.
Right, because this past spring, we went to several schools trying to figure out what will our pillars be, what will our focus be. That's kind of done. Now we want them to observe how does project base look, what does the teacher do, what does the student.
Say we just pretty contractors, wherever we hired staff, we forced them to spend a full day in the building inside with the kids, the whole side of this is a job they actually want. That is so different than how you do it. So they decided they want to commit to that before we hire them.
Is force the right term?
Yes, because when we did into it, some people it didn't work out. And so then we said with all, after a certain point, we forced all this.
Before we ever move on, could you talk a little bit about the relationship the charter will have with other schools in the district? I know at our breakfast, you asked the true or false question. The charter school is going to take all the.
Right, there's a little bit of just uneasiness at the other buildings because there's no word on what's going on, or is it going to take our jobs, is it going to take our best students. So one of the first things after tonight is that I would go to the other building staff meetings. I've already made it out with Mr. Erspalmer and just kind of explain what a public charter school is and how it has to have, I believe, the same ratio of demographics as our other buildings. So if we have 18% special ed at one building, your charter should have that same representation as a public school entity. So we're not going to segregate in that way. There's not going to be, looking at applications and picking students that way. The other thing is teachers losing their jobs. Certainly, we would never want that to happen. If we would pull a certain number of students, then we would seek the teachers that we already have that would want to be trained. Also targeting, of course, people who already live in this district who are homeschooling or open enrolling out.
And also the notion of being lab school.
Right, and the things that we try at charter schools are often called lab schools because if something works, that those practices can go to the rest of the district.
In districts where there's a good relationship, it's simply referred to, it's a different option for our families and students. It's not a better option. And so that's really a key phrase to move forward marketing and stuff, is we say it's a different option for families. It's something else. We're not saying it's better because the education at the other institutions is pretty remarkable. Hopefully when we talk about student achievement in November, we can look at that. It's a different option for families. We're not saying it's a better option for them.
And sometimes it doesn't work out for a student, and then you have a meeting, and it's all about how is it working for the student.
You know, that comment that you made, Rhonda, about how the exploration or the lab school concept would be good for everybody. Years ago, we had a speaker on gifted and talented going way back. And the comment that has resonated with me for years has been that what's good for gifted and talented is good for everybody. So it's sort of like what's going to be good here at the exploration school that works, and we know it works, may be good for everybody in some way, shape or form.
Right. A lot of teachers are doing, it's called Genius Hour right now, which is a time once a week when students do get to follow their it's personalized learning, follow what they're interested in and do a project. But at a charter school, your schedule is open up that happens every day for students. So if there are ways that we can see how that's working, then Genius Hour could become more embedded in the other buildings too.
Other questions?
I'll just say from my experience opening charter schools, the most recent in Stevens Point, the end result is that you do get a blend of movement within the district, plus homeschoolers coming from their home environment, plus you do get some neighboring districts that want to test the waters or see if the opportunity is as great as what is being marketed. So it's typically not an all or one or nothing type of scenario. It's usually a blending, so for what it's worth.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to approve the proposed timeline for planning the charter school, including the budgeting for marketing and preliminary professional development. Any additional questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm going to just recuse myself because my daughter-in-law works for the company, is working in schools. And I don't want to have anything come back later.
Sure.
Yes, it is.
All right, very good.
I'll introduce the final item for the consent agenda. Just real quickly, we've got an equity issue that we are trying to address with our special education aid licensure reimbursement. Currently, the bus drivers who are required to carry a CDL have the CDL cost reimbursed to them. However, our special education aides do not currently have that same opportunity. So we're looking at creating some equity here for our special education aides. And if you have additional questions, I'm sure Ms. Marcon would be one to answer them.
Maureen, would you mind explaining to the members here that on the second page, where it says new and renewal license payment is $100. I got confused completely, which I called and I've talked to you about the 26.5%, and I don't think anybody else would understand it either, so would you mind explaining that?
So we're able to receive reimbursement based on special education, programming, and so.
Do you want me?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, well, the special education, you get, it's a year delayed, but if it's coded aidable, which is, I won't get into nuances, yeah, well, 011, if it goes 011, that districts receive 26% aid the following year based upon them. So and that cost would be, then there would be, it would go into, the more that increases, it would literally go into an aidable portion the following year, year after. That's what that means.
And if I might, originally when special education law was created, the federal government said, we believe in this so much that we're going to fund special education at 70 cents on the dollar. Well, that 70 cents on the dollar turns out to only be 26.5 cents on the dollar. So it's not a product of deflation, it's just the feds never came through with their promise. So 26 cents is more or less what we get back from the feds.
Are there any other employee groups where this licensure reimbursement issue might arise?
None that have made us aware of it, and none that we have identified. We don't
Looked into
believe
it,
so.
I looked into it a little bit just to see, I looked into it a little bit just to see if there were that same exact question that we're not coming back again in a few months saying, wait, what about my group? These are the two support staff departments that require the licensure and the renewal.
And I move approval of the reimbursement for special education aid licensure and renewal.
There's a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion and second, discussion.
Yes, I would like to make a little bit change to that motion and go back to anyone who has to pay for it in 2017 and pay their license. In other words, going back to January.
Like last school year?
Like, right, in January. So in other words, the year 17.
Oh, so it's done every January?
No.
No, just so that if you just paid for it, you're not gonna be able to make, you paid your $100. I think they should get credit for it from the beginning of 2017. So,
2017, 18, you mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no,
You're saying calendar year.
the calendar year.
I think July 1st would be good because we are crossing fiscal years and our audit's done. So that would be the problem of going back to calendar year for our audit purposes. We would have to be July 1st, but I hear what you're
Okay,
saying.
I'll go
Do you need
July
that
1st.
specified in here? I mean, it would be starting this school year.
The intent is for those aides who are with us 6 months from now to receive the reimbursement. So in other words, we don't want to reimburse somebody that's maybe only going to stay with us for a week.
Got it.
So we want them to demonstrate that they're as committed to our students as we are to them.
And that's what it says up above.
Yes.
Correct. Okay.
And at this point, we're projecting 5, is that correct?
Yeah, that's about an average renewals.
And the renewal is every year?
Every 5 years.
Every 5 years, so we have 5 rotating through over a 5-year period, give or take.
It's not a large cost item.
Okay, there was suggestion to amend your motion to reflect this fiscal year as opposed to at this point in time going forward.
Well, it says as outlined, which is, it's going to be made after 6 months of service, but I don't mind adding the start at the beginning of this fiscal year, this 2017 fiscal year.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Okay, so the motion is modified, the second.
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Brings us to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So,
Motion?
second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Andy Mannion?
Yes.
Steve Shambo?
Yes.
Sandy Robinson?
Yes.
Pat Fair?
Aye.
Steve Hackett?
Aye.
Steve Johnson, yes. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, everyone.